What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deeper in the Woods podcast. My name's Alan. With me is Nate. We're part of a group called The Woods Disc. And with us today, Innova sponsored, Joel Freeman. What's up, Joel?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Well, we're here. We're here hanging out.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, excited to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, the heart behind Deeper in the Woods, the podcast that we're doing is we've had frank conversations on disc golf and Jesus, and how do we bring Jesus into the sport that we love. And so that's kind of where this started from, and we're glad to have you, Joel, with us on the podcast, as a believer in Christ and obviously as a true professional in the world of disc golf. And so my question for you to start: disc golf. How, why did you start playing disc golf? What brought you into the game? And then at what point were you like, you know what? I can do this for my career. I can do this forever.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up as an athletic kid, hand-eye coordinated kid, liked trying things out. And I think beyond that, I'm sure there are people in your life that you've known who like to swim upstream, right? So swim against the current a little bit. I was kind of one of those where the main, I don't know, football, baseball, whatever, those didn't quite appeal to me quite as much as some of the other, I don't know, niche sports or activities. For whatever reason, I just always liked to be a little different. I was raised in a household of artists, so there was just sort of this creative element to, I don't know, the game of disc golf, I guess. I also always loved throwing a frisbee. I played a ton of ultimate growing up, and I just always loved that. And I mean, I couldn't say for sure, but one thing led to another. A buddy of mine in junior year of high school said, "Hey, have you ever heard of disc golf?" I said, "I've heard of it. It sounds like a blast, but have no idea what it's about. Sure. I've never played it." And we went to a shop that we found online or whatever that was nearby, grabbed the fastest discs that we could, and headed to the course, and we played almost every day that summer. That was our first time playing, and we just the train never stopped chugging after that. So fast forward maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and I hadn't really ever met anyone who could beat me or outthrow me. Sure. And so I started kind of thinking like, well, how good am I at this really? And so, looked up a couple of videos online of Dave Feldberg and Nico LaCastro and Will Schustrick, and, watching them do what they're doing, I'm like, these guys are the best in the world. I could do what they were doing. Like I could do what they're doing, especially with a little bit of extra practice and
sure.
and work. I think I could figure this out. And from then it was just a matter of, let me find a tournament to sign up for. Played in MPO, my first tournament, and against Eagle McMahon and Joe Revere. And so I was like very privileged to have those guys in my areas to give me a up close look at what it really means to be a top level player. And played on lead card with them both in the final round. Almost got second place. Eagle passed me at the last second, but point being, I was in the mix and I did well. And so from then I was just addicted to tournaments. Tried to go on tour once, didn't do so hot, kind of tucked the tail in between the legs,
Sure.
Went back home, saved up some money, jumped on again in 2018. And that was kind of when my tour journey really began.
Gotcha.
Las Vegas Challenge 2018, and that was when I got second place.
And then
so it was off and running from there.
How old were you then?
Oh gosh, you're making me do math. I would have been 23, I think. Or
okay. Nice.
Yeah, I think that's right. But
were you working at the time?
I don't think so. I think at that point I was head first, just jumping in. I'd been working at Chipotle for a couple years.
Okay.
All right.
Cool,
So I said, Chipotle, we're cutting ties. I got bigger fish to fry. I gotta go see the world.
Well, I know we're certainly excited. You moved down from Chipotle. I think
That's true.
It's awesome.
Absolutely, and I still love Chipotle. For the record,
Of course.
It's a good sign when you work for a company and you like them more on the tail end.
I
So
understand
Especially
that.
a food industry.
yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
that's cool.
So I got a question for you though, Joel. You're telling me your very first tournament, you played MPO.
This is one of my favorite stats, just because I get to say this. My first sanctioned round was a 10-24.
Holy smokes.
So you didn't really have a chance to even play in the amateur division.
No, which strangely, I was like a little jealous. Like, a month or two in playing pro only, I'm like, I don't have enough discs.
Right.
Like, I only own 20 discs. I don't have a practice basket. I was like missing these little kind of like crucial pillars of like what it is to be a disc golfer. And yet I was, playing in the pro division and stuff.
You skipped all the steps. You just went straight up to the top.
I didn't understand that there were leagues. I didn't know there were like clubs or am worlds. I didn't know about any of that. I just liked throwing the disc.
You are going to be very unique because nowadays there is no such thing as just going to an MPO.
No.
And so that's probably a one-in-one story nowadays. So that's cool.
Yeah,
Cool
it's
to hear.
interesting because not that I'm still in the amateur ranks, but I had an opportunity this past year to play MP40. Holy smokes, I was so nervous. I've been playing the amateur world for 3 years or whatever, and holy smokes, I'm about to go play my first pro tournament. What do I do? How do I act? And the fact that he's just like, I just go pro, no problem. That's pretty wild.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it was purely based on just the skills. Like I said, YouTube, and I was like, I think I belong in this category.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Awesome. Sweet. And then kind of transition into more of the faith aspect questions. You've been on tour. You're obviously a faith believer. What does that look like to live that day in, day out? And what does the accountability look like for that? You're traveling the country, sometimes the world. What are the struggles? What are the things that you go through that, us people from home don't typically see or understand?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, my first year or two on tour, I was just by myself, just on my own. And that's where those questions get really hard to find answers to. Community is just enormous, as I'm sure most of us already know. So I single out the first couple of years because after that, my wife has been with me. So that's been a complete game changer.
Sure.
Just whole new level of constant, meaningful relationship with her. Beyond that, I got to shout out to my good friend Lance Brown. Me and Lance have been, the two Christian guys on tour for so many years. And it doesn't matter who that other person is. You can't get that. You can't get that degree of support that you really need from just one other person. Even if it is a spouse, you still need other friends. You still need other members of your community to have that diverse kind of multifaceted sense of relationship that one needs to stay spiritually and emotionally healthy. So then it really boils down to you. What moves are you going to make? What habits are you going to build in order to set yourself up for success long term, and success being connection with God, closeness with Him, intimacy with Him, and so then that boils down to I'm not going to say anything profound here, but just like consistent quiet time. Sure. I know this is cheesy, but like pay attention to the kind of music that's kind of getting into your ears, and just little things like that. And so again, fast forward to now, and suddenly we've got a really strong kind of core group of maybe a dozen, maybe 15 Jesus followers on the tour. And then we've even got an outer kind of, by this I mean guys who are kind of regional, who might only play 5 pro tour events a year as opposed to all 20 or whatever. There's a circle beyond the inner circle, if you will, of another maybe 20 people. And so it's a really legitimate sense of community. And so that's massive for people currently in the year of 2023, to come out on tour and have access to community like I didn't, when I first came out. So huge deal.
Yeah, we had Cole on the last podcast, and he spoke to how influential Eagles Wings, which we're going to transition to, is in his life and able to keep him accountable. And you were an integral part in Eagles Wings and somewhat of the the growth of it, which is really cool to see, whatnot. So so we'll transition to Eagles Wings. Tell us a little bit about what it means to you and what it means to the tour, and just how integral it is as a foundation. Whatnot.
Eagles Wings is an incredible. For anyone who doesn't know, they're a disc golf ministry organization. They're an incredible organization. They have 4 main pillars, which I won't go into, but one of those 4 is the tour ministry. And for a long time, that was kind of this intangible, we hope something cool happens here, but we don't understand what it's going to take or what it looks like. Sure. And has grown and shaped into this amazing thing that now Eagles Wings as an organization is like pouring more resources into, and everyone's really excited and thankful for how God's been moving in the tour ministry. So, I mean, what it boils down to is just kind of like you alluded to in your last question, like a normal person, if you will, has access to a, traditional church regiment, sure. Probably access, one would hope access to a small group of some sort, so on and so forth. When meanwhile, these guys on the road, it's like we can't attend church in a conventional sense. And so, Eagles Wings has attempted to create all of those things. Church doesn't gain you salvation. Small group doesn't gain you salvation, but these are like tools and really helpful things that have been put in place all around the world for a reason, because they're important, they're helpful, they're encouraging to somebody who's following Jesus. And so Eagles Wings has their big goal on tour has been just to create a way for the pros to be able to engage in those things. Because in the midst of our lifestyle,
that was probably a big obstacle for you initially, because you could pop into a church if you had a later tea time, and they'd greet you, and it would be like, okay, see you next year. And
and that's kind of whatever. It's kind of a dangerous game to play. Like sure. The church is such a kind of an ambiguous, arbitrary. It's run by humans, and humans are going to get it wrong sometime, and every church is different, and and so as much as sure, every once in a while you would land on a you could go to a random church that you've never been to before, get a recommendation from a friend or something, and every once in a while you'd step into a church and feel comfortable, like, oh, this is a good fit. But the other half of the time, you're like, I'm not sure I walked into the right place, and so it's just, and even no matter how good the church is, kind of like you're saying, you step in and then you just check right back out, and it's like, well, shoot. Like,
there's no
see you next year, I guess.
There's no accountability, there's no relationships, there's no community,
no deep roots at all. So
I know I admire the Eagles Wings and how you guys kind of rally around. We got a lot of young players, which is kind of huge for them, I would assume. Yeah, and so eventually those young players are going to become veterans in the tour, and it's going to be really cool to see them take charge. And 10 years from now, they'll be expanding it even further. And so it's cool to see the other organization push the rock, push the word and push the gospel, whatnot. So
Joel,
cool.
I got a question for you. Your involvement, you specifically, obviously, you started from just you and your friend, kind of obviously on tour. That is your main relationship, your community with Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Early on. Obviously you helped with the Eagles Wings get things rolling. What is your involvement now?
Yeah. So I guess my wife and I joined staff, the Eagles Wings staff, in an official capacity as of the beginning of last year. So It's been, a little over a year and a half. And I don't know if we have like an official title. Sure. If they're like talking about us in the meetings or whatever. I think they just call us Joel and Alyssa, but
sure.
But I don't know. I think we're the boots on the ground as I talked about, those 4 categories of like the Eagles Wings, the 4 main initiatives of the organization. We're the, I don't know, I guess the leaders or at least like I said, the boots on the ground in the one initiative, the tour ministry initiative. So, got it.
Cool. Yeah, you lead worship. It sounds like you're integral into accountability for the rest of the Eagles Wings on some level.
Yeah, we run the small group. We lead worship at the chapels. A lot of just little like planning and organizational things. We kind of communicate with everybody, and really, I think it's been meaningful for the kind of the higher ups in the organization to have us like plugged in all the time, because it's really hard to designate somebody on staff and just like throw them onto the tour.
Right.
Just travel. Why don't you just go travel for 30 weeks out of the year? Just be out there.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's how it goes.
Yeah. So for me to be able to do it as a player, someone who's already going to be in all these different cities throughout the year and whatever, has been, has allowed, I think, some of that momentum to really catch. And then we work most closely with a guy named Micah Mariano. Mm-hmm. He preaches for us. He'll like fly out to a lot of the events or whatever, and so he's very plugged in with our tour ministry initiative under the Eagles Wings organization umbrella or whatever as well. Okay. So
cool.
That's pretty neat.
And then you alluded to your wife, Alyssa. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I were a wife on tour, I would want to be, involved in something, be plugged into something. Mm-hmm. What does her role look like? And, how does she, how about with the Eagles Wings, I suppose?
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, I love that you asked that question, because truthfully, like I'm probably giving everyone the impression here that I'm like way more involved than I am, and I'm taking like more credit than I should be. She really is taking the brunt of the responsibility of everything I've explained thus far. So she's really, I'm being pulled in different directions and focus on training and trying to take care of my body and blah, 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 she's the one who really has been investing the most in doing the communicating, the coordinating, the planning, printing off, worship music lyrics, and arranging meetings and making phone calls and whatever. She's the powerhouse that's kind of awesome. Making a lot of those things happen. So, it wouldn't. This is really cool to be able to say, but I think everything that everyone's seeing, the growth and the momentum and everything that we've been talking about, would not be there without her specifically. I would not have been able to steward everything that's been happening by myself in the way that she has been able to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is really cool.
Yep.
because you talked about on tour, your tour life changed early on when you were riding solo.
Mm-hmm.
You found her and were married, and both of you were on tour right away?
Pretty much. So this is another kind of crazy, quick little story. I toured for a couple of years, 2018 and 19. 2020, Alyssa and I were getting serious. We had been dating, and and we're like, well, we're engaged, or we want to get married, whatever. And so I'll spare some of the details, but I had planned on taking 2020 off to get more plugged in with her family, to devote that time to the wedding, to just learn how to be married people, and just that change. And so the thing that's crazy about that is I had planned on taking 2020 off before COVID ever existed. So
I don't mean to fanboy, but I do remember that happening, where you announced, you're taking 2020 off, and it was a bit of a buzz.
It's crazy. It's crazy. My 2020 went according to plan. It's totally crazy to be able to say that. A couple months later, obviously COVID, and the rug was pulled out from all my peers, all the other players on the tour and everything. But we got married. We lived in a little apartment, as married people for the first time. And then, that was in May of 2020. And so that would have been, I don't know, 9 months later or something that we did in fact go on tour together, and we've been just on the road ever since.
Man,
cool. And then
awesome.
How does that relationship how do you manage a relationship on tour? What does that look like to keep accountability and remain in good faith and pursue God together? And what does that look like as a relationship, whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, probably the same as anybody else. I mean, I think as much as people like to try to overcomplicate, like, oh, everything changes when you're an athlete. It's like, no, I don't. I think if you're healthy, it doesn't. There's Alyssa and I get that, whatever, this would be controversial if you asked 100 people that were in my shoes or whatever, but I've made it clear to Alyssa, like, there's no time that I'm off limits to you. There's no subject. You can come to me in between the drive on hole 7 and the green of hole 7 and say, hey, I'm having a hard time with X, Y, and Z. Like, I just think that's the only way to do it. Like, that's as a husband, like, I can't ever be off limits to her. Like, that's the commitment that I made to her in marriage, is just that I'm always by your side. I'm always here for you. There's no time where the do not disturb sign is hanging on my doorknob or whatever, like, no, it's I'm yours always. You're your first priority as far as I'm concerned. She comes before disc golf, before anyone else, so
that's a very interesting perspective. I love it, because those of us who aren't professionals in the disc golf world, I'll find myself doing something, disc golf, and I'm focused. Even at my level, I'm focused, and she calls me. And I'm like, dude, I'm in the middle of a tournament. What are you doing? And I have to mentally, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
Where are my priorities here? I need to have a conversation with her about my children who are doing something, because you're right. I made that commitment. And here, even from your perspective, doing your profession, and you are still open for her to come and say, hey, in between drive 7 and putt 7, let's chat. That's cool.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting, because that is a little bit different. Like, disc golf to you in the middle of your tournament, like, that's something that's strangely like a little more special to you, whereas for me, that is like part of my life. That's like playing a tournament is like tying my shoes. Like, it's just part, like, and so if again, like if tournament time is a time where she's not, like, where I'm off limits to her, that's half of our life that I'm not off limits for her. You know what I mean? And so it's like, so there's just no, again, in my opinion, like, and I think God's heart for marriage, is just like that. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
I appreciate that.
Tell us a little bit about your testimony. Tell us a little about how you got, became a Christian, accepted Jesus Christ into your heart, whatnot. What does that look like?
Yeah, sure. I am very blessed and privileged to have been raised by Christian parents, and mostly on my dad's side. There's been generations of people who knew the Lord, and so there's really really rich spiritual inheritance there for me.
Yeah.
So I'm privileged with that. Having said that, I was like, I was 4 years old, and my mom, made some comment about Jesus living inside her, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I want Jesus in me.
That's cool.
She's like, okay, you can do it too. We had the conversation, yada yada. Fast forward to like age 11, I think it was, where it was the first time that I kind of had this thought of like, wait a second, I should like do something that's for some reason other than just because I want it. Like I should take actions that aren't selfish. Because prior to then, it was just like I would just do whatever feels good, whatever sounds fun, whatever sounds good to me. I was the king of my own life, and so, and I don't know. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. They're age 11, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter how old you are or where you're at in your life. Right. Like there's this, when you come to know Jesus's heart and God's will for your life, there's a switch from where you're king of your own life, you're doing whatever you think is best, to then you surrender your life to Him, and you genuinely are chasing after whatever you understand to be His best for your life. And so once you make that switch, in a nutshell, that's in my eyes, and in the way I would explain it is like that. In a nutshell, that's just what it means to follow Jesus, is just engaging in a constant pursuit of surrender to Him. This taking on this attitude of, God, you know better than me. I would rather have whatever your plan is, because you love me and you want what's best, and you know the steps to get wherever that is, as opposed to, if I had things go my way, you know how all that would turn out, and it wouldn't be as good as what you have. So then it's just a matter of just chasing after that, just doing your best to pursue Him, draw as close as you can to Him, invest in your relationship with Him, and move closer and closer to Him and His will for your life. And just little day-to-day things, Like,
I love that.
I could point out little milestones along the way, little conversations with certain people, but in a nutshell, that's how it went for me. So
that's awesome. Cool. Similar story for me. I think those kind of stories where you grew up in a Christian home, are beautiful in their own way. It doesn't have to be this dramatic thing that happens.
Absolutely.
So I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Joel, let me ask you this. Obviously, Nate and I as amateurs, and we talked about it a little bit, for us to go out and play. I get to play, every so often. Tournament once a month, maybe twice a month. This is you as a profession. I go out, I'm going to go have a good time, get rid of some stress, enjoy myself. It's obviously a little bit different from your seat. So I guess my question is, when you deal with, you got stresses of life, stresses of faith, you got all that going on. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. I don't know. I've been asked all kinds of questions similar to this over time. And one of my first thoughts is always, if I knew the answer to that, I think I would be better. I'd be better than I am. But no, I think, first and foremost, I think part of the, I don't know, skill of being a great disc golfer is being able to turn off one switch and turn another one on, meaning when it's time to throw your shot, that's all that there is. And
Gotcha.
and as soon as the shot's out of your hand, as soon as it's done or whatever, your mind can wander or whatever. But I think part of being a good disc golfer is honing in that skill of okay, once my foot hits that tee pad, this is the only, my only thought, my only goal in the moment, and I mean, that's an interesting topic too, because in the Christian world, it's like, oh, whoa, your only thought? Like, shouldn't you put him first? And I'm like, again, maybe this is controversial, but I think God's okay with us, like, focusing on something.
100%.
He's the center of my life. That is genuinely true, and there's no debate, no exception there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be better off if I line up a shot and I go, okay, just left of that tree, 30-degree hyzer or whatever. I'm going to be better off thinking those thoughts than I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's like, so, and I think he's okay with that. I don't think we're making God uncomfortable
100%.
when we're focused at the task at hand, on the task at hand.
Yeah. It's okay to lock in. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And but to come back to your question, I just think, one of the big lessons I've been learning recently is just, I'm a very kind of detail-oriented, methodical person. And so I try to really set myself up for success, take my job seriously, and I put routines and things into place to try to set myself up as best I can to do well. But that's a good thing. That's a smart thing to do. It's a good thing. But the flip side of that coin, the downward consequence of that is that I can develop this false confidence in myself and my routines and all those things. And so there's this sense of like, wow, I'm really like, I'm doing
I'm
this.
the man.
Like, I'm the man. I'm figured this thing out, when really, all of a sudden it all comes crashing down and you realize you don't have all the control that you were starting to feel like you have. And so, comes right back to that surrender, and that song by Christian Stanfield, or it's by Passion featuring Christian Stanfield, whatever. My heart is yours. My heart is yours. Take it all. Take it all. My life in your hands. That's been my anthem lately. Just as much as I would love to say, as long as I eat 3 eggs in the morning and 4 ounces of yogurt and blah, 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 and it's like, as long as I wake up between 7:15 and 7:20 and no, you like, it doesn't matter. However much you practice, however much you prayed, whatever you ate for dinner last night or breakfast this morning, none of that matters when you step on the course. I mean, I can't say it doesn't matter, but the point is, like, nothing is guaranteed. When you step on the course, you have to earn every shot. It doesn't matter how many reps you did and how many times you pulled it off in practice.
Got it.
Will you pull it off now? And you, at the end of the day, like, God's the one who makes the world go round. You just can't always control it. So.
We're just here. Yeah,
that's cool.
We're here participating with him.
Yep.
That's cool. So, Joel, then, as we are set to wrap up, question for us as a club to you: what can we do in prayer for you? Is there something that we can set aside time in our prayer time with Jesus for Joel Freeman and his wife?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first and foremost, just everything we've been talking about, and just getting away from the white knuckling habits, keep, holding on so tightly to the things that I want to see in my life and surrendering it to God. It's just an ongoing process for anyone who's trying to follow
100%.
follow Jesus. But yeah, beyond that, a couple specific things like we've got a baby on the way.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Liz
awesome.
is
That's awesome.
17 weeks pregnant currently.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
Congratulations.
exciting. Thank you. Yeah. So we got our first one on the way, and then we're also at the same time becoming homeowners for the first time. We're about to close on a place back in Colorado, and so some big adult life things happening, and so just praying that all that goes well. And there was one other thing, and I think I forgot. Just the I'm just not the biggest like social media guy. I don't do the greatest job keeping up with that, and so you can always just pray like, God, give Joel just like some good ideas. Take it easy on him. Because I just that part of my job I have a hard time with. So
It doesn't come naturally to
go.
some, so I get it.
Yeah.
Totally understand.
Well, Joel, we appreciate you coming and hanging out with us. I know you've got a tournament round to continue.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it was
awesome having you on.
Yeah, you gave us some very, very good perspective, especially coming from a gentleman who is married on tour, and how your wife and you are a team, and how you guys pursue this game of disc golf and still pursue Christ as your first goal. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So appreciate everyone for tuning in with us. We're excited to continue these conversations moving forward, particularly about Jesus and Jesus and disc golf and how those two worlds collide. Take it easy.
Peace.